Hello, everyone. Show starts in 5 minutes. Giving everybody a chance to get on board. Hello, everyone. The show's getting ready to start in 3 minutes. 3 minutes. If y'all are tuned in, I need to see y'all comments, what city and state y'all from, so I can shout y'all out. Candy, we got New Jersey in the house. You know, Candy, I was literally near y'all. I was in New York a couple weeks ago. I was there for a few days. I wish we could have linked up. I wish we could have. But thanks for tuning in. Hey, I got a surprise for y'all. Those who actually tune into the show and engage, I take note of that, and I'll be doing some giveaways real soon. Oh, you was out of it? Oh, okay. She said she was out of it. Hopefully we can have a surprise guest, a surprise commenter today. I'm not going to say his name because I don't know for sure if he's really going to show up. But he is a celebrity. He's an actor. And that's all I'm going to say. But I hope he tunes in. If not, next time. We got 1 more minute and the show will begin. Okay. Yeah, I have those moments too where I break down. Actually, that's the reason why I left. That's the reason why I went to New York, because I was dealing with some mental issues. So I had to get away from Texas. Texas really be trying to bring a sister down. Texas is really, I feel like this is not my home for real. It's not. I need to go to a more Democrat state. So we got about 1 more minute. Okay, so we're here. Oof, them landlords. See, that's why I feel like we need to start seeing. That's why we need to start having our own businesses, being our entrepreneurs, owning things like owning our own homes. That way we could cut the middleman out where we don't have to answer to nobody. You know what I'm saying? Okay, Adria's here. Okay. So let's get right into it. Today I will be talking about Um, the war on drugs, who the war was really about. Um, so in the early stages of drug prohibition, many currently illegal drugs such as marijuana, opium, coca, and psychedelics have been used for thousands of years for both medical and spiritual purposes. So why are some drugs legal and other drugs are illegal today? It's not based on any scientific assessment of the relative risk of these drugs, but it has everything to do with who's associated with these drugs. The first anti opium laws in the 1870s were directed at Chinese immigrants. The first anti cocaine laws in the early 1900s were directed at Black men in the South. The first anti marijuana laws in the Midwest and the Southwest in the 1910s and 20s were directed at Mexican migrants and Mexican Americans. Today, Latino and especially Black communities are still subject to wildly disproportionate drug enforcement and sentencing practices. So, what does that mean? I'm glad you asked. I'm getting ready to get right into it. Nickerson and the generation gap. In the 1960s, as drugs became symbols of youth rebellion, social upheaval, and political dissent, the government halted scientific research to evaluate their medical safety and efficacy. In June 1971, President Nixon declared a war on drugs. He dramatically increased the size and presence of federal drug control agencies and pushed through measures such as mandatory sentencing and no-knock warrants. A top Nixon aide, John Enrichleman, later admitted, "You want to know what this was really all about? The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies, the anti-war left and Black people. Unfortunately, Black people." You understand what I'm saying? So we knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war on Black. I mean, the war or Black, I'm sorry. Illegal to be either against the war or Black. But by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and Blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could distribute those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vivify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. Nixon temporarily placed marijuana in Schedule 1, the most restrictive category of drugs, pending review by a commission he appointed, led by Republican Pennsylvania Governor Raymond Schaffer. So I want to ask you guys, who do you think the war was really against? Was the war really against Black people, or was the war really against drugs? Because I find it very fishy that if you was to say, oh, the war was about drugs, okay, well, why is it that majority of the Black people were put in prisons more than white people? Actually, who even, the bigger question, who brought the drugs here? Who brought the drugs here and made it a law, a anti-law, and criminalized drugs? Some people say that the government brought the drugs here. Okay, hey Liberty, I'm glad you joined the chat. So one of my questions was, what was the war against? Who was the war against? Who was the war against? Who brought the drugs here? Reagan. Reagan. So, okay, so Adria says the government brought it over. Candy says Reagan. I find it very fishy. Like, if you really think about it, anytime, okay, so Candy also agrees that it's definitely the government. Okay, so cool. Now we all agree the government brought it here. I find it strange that every time black people do something, they always try to, the government, yeah, and that's another thing. Adria says it was given to the poor. That's a great point. Notice how drugs was actually um, plotted and distributed in the poor communities where majority of the poor was black people back in the 60s, the 80s. And they didn't really have any good lucrative jobs for black people. So my thing is, it just seems like the government is always targeting the black community. Like, even when it came to Black Wall Street, that was a whole massacre. That was a whole massacre where it was a group of black people who had their own businesses, their own homes. It was like their own little city. And white people and also police officers encouraged this. They also was involved with destroying Black Wall Street back in 1921 in May. It just seemed like every time black people try to get together, or we do something, or we have a business or some sort of organization or a system, the government come up with laws. They come up with laws to try to criminalize us for doing these types of things. Um, they come up with laws to try to, if you're just now getting on the live, please comment who you are in the comment section so I can shout you out. Hold on. Sorry, y'all. So I can shout you out. So Candy says, when I work at the drug rehab, it was very interesting to see the white kids on drugs, and they have money because they were bored, and yet their parents had enough money for multiple rehab sessions. Well, see, I find that strange. So that's actually interesting. So white people were allowed to get treatment for being on drugs versus the black people who needed the treatment for being addicted to drugs. They were sentenced to prison. They didn't get treatment. There was this one lady, I was watching, there's this Netflix series. What was that Netflix series that's on Netflix about drugs? It was something that Candy sent me. Well, basically one of the ladies, she had told I think the judge or the police that she needs help. She's a drug addict or something. And instead of them giving her rehab or a treatment, they just sentenced her to prison. They gave her time for it. And I'm like, okay, well, that's strange. But the white kids, they get to go to rehab and all these little special treatments. But the blacks get criminalized for it. So to me, I feel like the war was really against black people versus the war on drugs. Because it's Reagan, Nixon and them, they're very smart. The government is very smart. They know that it's illegal to discriminate against any race or group. So instead of making it about race, they'll just say a general statement, like war on drugs, when really it was a war on blacks. But anyway, so Candy says, but the black kids could not afford to go to rehab and had to wait for the state to sign them up. And the only way that the state would take them is if they had Medicaid, and a lot of them did not have it. So very sad case. So moving forward, in 1972, the commission anonymously recommended decriminalizing the possession and distribution of marijuana for personal use. Nixon ignored the report and rejected its recommendations. Between 1973 and 1977, however, 11 states decriminalized marijuana possessions. In January 1977, President Jimmy Carter was inaugurated on campaign platform that included marijuana decriminalization. In October 1977, the Senate Judiciary Committee voted to decriminalize possession of and once, I mean, up to an ounce of marijuana for personal use. Within just a few years, though, the tide has shifted. Proposals to decriminalize marijuana were abandoned as parents became increasingly concerned about high rates of teen marijuana use. Marijuana was ultimately caught up in a broader cultural backlash against the perceived permissiveness of the 1970s. So there's this video that I wish I can show y'all, but y'all can also look at it. It's on your own. It's called "What Is the Drug War" with Jazzy and Molly Carbapel. I'm gonna just say Molly Crab or Crab Apple. um, so I'm gonna play this video. I hope y'all listen up. Okay, so Candy says there were the they were the sent to prison or the state will pick them up on a waiting list for drug rehab. And a lot of the times you had a lot of times you have to have Medicaid to qualify, and a lot of Black people did not have in Medicaid. Sad situation. To me, it just seems like there's been like a determined to curse the Black community, especially when I think about Black Wall Street. That was just very sad. You know, a lot of those people were killed. It says, let me see what the report say. Okay, so it says, let me see, command find injured. So it says in Black Wall Street or Tulsa Tribune, 35 city blocks went up in flames. 300 people died and 800 were injured. So none of them got reparations. I heard they were talking about reparations, but none of that ever happened. And I just feel like all the hell that Black people have been through, I just feel like we are way overdue our reparations. I'm talking 26 million American dollars a piece. 26 million American dollars a piece. And on top of that, I'm going to shift this a little bit because it just really concerns me that America, the government is so quick to help other countries, but they don't want to help us. They don't want to help their citizens. Like they want to help Turkey, they want to help Ukraine. Hopefully I could talk about that next week. You know, I just don't understand. Could anybody tell me why is the government so quick to help other countries versus our people in America? Sometimes I don't even think that we are considered citizens in America. They always trying to curse us. It's just sad. Okay. So this video I'm about to play is called Jay-Z has his point of view about the war on drugs and who the war was really against. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this. It's only 3 minutes and 50 seconds. So yeah. Tell me what y'all think. is the end of that video. Jay-Z said it best. Didn't have Medicaid. Okay. Oh, you couldn't hear it? Nobody could hear it? Oh man. That was interesting information. Okay. Crap. I play okay. Um that's strange. You could not hear. Let me see. Basically what Jay-Z was saying that more people was locked up versus whites. Um, and he's saying that the population of people of black people that was locked up for drug use or distributing of drugs or selling drugs was like 2 million. Shucks. Let me see. Dang it. Okay. Well, that was just that's just not cool. Hold on. War on drugs. Jay-Z. Okay. Now, can y'all hear this?
In 1986, when I was coming of age, Ronald Reagan doubled down on the war on drugs that had been started by Richard Nixon in 1971. Drugs were bad, fried your brain, and drug dealers were monsters. The sole reason neighborhoods and major cities were failing. No one wanted to talk about Reaganomics and the ending of social safety nets, the defunding of schools and the loss of jobs in cities across America. Young men like me who hustled became a sole villain, and drug addicts lacked moral fortitude. In the 1990s, incarceration rates in the U.S. blew up. Today, we imprison more people than any other country in the world. China, Russia, Iran, Cuba. All countries we consider autocratic and repressive. Yeah, more than them. Judges' hands were tied by tough on crime laws, and they were forced to hand out mandatory life sentences for simple possession and low-level drug sales. My home state of New York started this with Rockefeller laws. Then the feds made distinctions between people who sold powder cocaine and crack cocaine, even though they were the same drug. Only difference is how you take it. And even though white people used and sold crack more than black people, somehow it was black people who went to prison. The media ignored actual data to this day. Crack is still talked about as a black problem. The NYPD raided our Brooklyn neighborhoods while Manhattan bankers openly used coke with impunity. The war on drugs exploded the U.S. prison population disproportionately, locking away black and Latinos. Our prison population grew more than 900%. When the war on drugs began in 1971, our prison population was 200,000. Today it is over 2 million. Long after the crack era ended, we continued our war on drugs. There were more than 1.5 million drug arrests in 2014. More than 80% were for possession only. Almost half were for marijuana. People are finally talking about treating addiction to harder drugs as a health crisis, but there's no compassionate language about drug dealers. Unless, of course, we're talking about places like Colorado, whose state economy got a huge boost by the above-ground marijuana industry. A few states south in Louisiana are still handing out mandatory sentences for people who sell weed, despite a booming and celebrated 50 billion legal marijuana industry. Most states still disproportionately hand out mandatory sentences to black and Latinos with drug cases. If you're entrepreneurial and live in one of the many states that are passing legalized laws, you may still face barriers participating in the above ground economy. Venture capitalists migrate to these states to open multi-billion-dollar operations, but former felons can't open a dispensary. Lots of times those felonies were drug charges, caught by poor people who sold drugs for a living, but are now prohibited from participating in one of the fastest growing economies. Got it? In states like New York, where holding marijuana is no longer grounds for arrest, police issue possession citations in black and Latino neighborhoods at a far higher rate than other neighborhoods. Kids in Crown Heights are constantly stopped and ticketed for trees. Kids at dorms in Columbia where rates of marijuana use are equal to or worse than those in the hood, are never targeted or ticketed. Rates of drug use are as high as they were when Nixon declared the so-called war in 1971. 45 years later, it's time to rethink our policies and laws. The war on drugs is an epic fail.
Hi, Niagara. I'm so glad you tuned in. We're talking about the war on drugs or the war on Black people. So a lot of the people in the audience, they agreed that the war was not really on drugs, but the war was on Black people, because most Black people were criminalized for selling drugs and using drugs, versus the white people. They were allowed to get treatment and go to rehab, so forth and so on. But anyway, so that's what we're talking about. Hey, not did I say your name right? Nija? Yes, Nixon. I said Reagan because I grew up in the Reagan area. Okay. So did you hear what Jay-Z was saying? Did you hear what he was insinuating? He was indicating that majority of Black people were criminalized for being on drugs or selling drugs versus the Caucasian community. Okay, I said it right the first time. Okay, cool. Thanks for tuning in. Glad to see you. Okay, now, me too. So, my question is, since we all acknowledge, well, majority of the commenters acknowledge that the government sent the drugs to America, especially the poor communities, and then they also locked us up for it. So, do you think that the government is totally responsible for, okay. Do you think the government should be responsible for compensating the Black people or the people that was locked up for selling drugs since they brought it here? Should there be some sort of compensation or reparations for that? Or do you think they get, the people get what they deserve? They were selling drugs, so they should go ahead and be locked up for a long time. To me, I think that the crime, like the sentencing, like 30 years to life, that's just way too long. That's way too much time just to sell drugs, which is a non-violent crime. Or, well, it could be violent because some people have died behind it. Some people robbed each other behind it. It was just crazy. So what you think? Since the government is responsible for putting these drugs in the poor community, basically destroying them, we all know the answer, but that's never what happened. We don't know. Never say never. Never say never. What you think, Candy? What you think, Nija? Should the government owe these people reparations for setting them up for failure? That's basically what they did. The government set the poor people up for failure. They set the Black people up for failure. Because, see, the thing is, we all know racism still exists. We all know that a lot of racism and, with whites and the government, want to lock us up. They never wanted to end slavery. They never wanted to end slavery. So what they did was they came up with prisons and made it legal for slavery. So I don't know. I feel like the government is totally responsible. They need to pay these people back for setting them up for failure. That's why it's illegal. That's why what is illegal? So Niagara, she thinks, I actually think it should be some type of compensation and reparations, but I feel like they were never admitted. It was damn dead great. Okay. Yeah, I mean, when the government is in position of power to come up with laws, these crazy laws, they don't like to be held accountable, especially when it comes to black people. They don't like to be held accountable for anything wrong that they do to our community. They actually take offense to it. Well, they should never sell drugs. Well, I mean, what were they gonna do? I mean, these black people, they were poor. I mean, there wasn't many job opportunities for black people back in the 80s and the 70s and further back. So I mean, they had to feed their families. So what they did, they hustled and, and until they can make ends meet. I mean, honestly, I felt like if you were gonna do something of a crime to help feed your family, I feel like there should be a stopping point. But some people continue because they were addicted to the money, But okay, so Adria says, oh, okay, that was a typo. Yeah, okay. Adria says, but if the government could start adding taxes to it, I bet we will be able to sell without any problem. Ooh, oh man, that's a good one. I would have never thought about that. I would have never thought about it. Just like how they add taxes to alcohol. Now, alcohol is legal, even though it's detrimental to your health, it's detrimental to your body, but that's legal. In certain states now, marijuana is legal because they can add taxes to it. So to me, it sounds like what the government can't add taxes to, they make it illegal, like prostitution. They can't add taxes to prostitution, so it's illegal. But in certain countries, it's legal. So if a government could come up with a strategy, their way of apologizing for locking these criminals up for selling their products that they created, they should be smart enough to come up with a strategy to add taxes to selling cocaine, crack, heroin, whatever you call it. That's a really good point, Adria. That's a really good point. Does anybody else agree with her? Because I agree. Add taxes to it, just like they add taxes to alcohol. Add taxes to the freaking me drugs. Anybody else agree? Disagree? Okay, moving forward. And I'm actually running out of time. So the video that I had you guys listen to, y'all can also go back and listen to it. It is by Jazzy. What is the drug war? YouTube video is only 3 minutes. So the video traces the drug war from President Nixon to Draconian Rockefeller drug laws to the emerging above ground marijuana market that is poised to make legal millions for wealthy investors during the same thing that generations of people of color have been arrested and locked up for. After you watch the video, read on to learn more about the discriminatory history of the war on drugs. The 1980s and 90s, drug hysteria and skyrocketing incarceration rates. The president of Ronald Reagan marked the start of a long period of skyrocketing rates of incarceration, largely thanks to his unprecedented expansion of the drug war. The number of people behind the bars for nonviolent drug law offenses increased from 50,000 in 1980 to over 400,000 by 1997. Public concern about illicit drug use built throughout the 1980s, largely due to media portrayals of people addicted to the smokable form of cocaine dubbed crack. Soon after Ronald Reagan took office in 1981, his wife Nancy Reagan began a highly publicized anti-drug campaign, coining the slogan "Just Say No." This set the stage for zero tolerance policies implemented in the mid to late 1980s. Los Angeles Police Chief Daryl Gates, who believed that casual drug users should be taken out and shot, founded the DARE drug education program, which was quickly adopted nationwide despite of the lack of evidence of its effectiveness. The increasingly harsh drug policies also blocked the expansion of syringe or assess programs and other harm reduction policy to reduce the rapid spread of HIV and AIDS. In the late 1980s, a political hysteria about drugs led to passage of drac- draconian penalties in Congress and state legislatures that rapidly increased the prison population. Oh, this is so much information. Okay, let me just sum it down. Okay, so nationwide, black comprise of 62% of drug offenders admitted to state prison. In 7 states, black constitutes between 80 and 90% of all people sent to prison on drug charges. Nationwide, black men are sent to state prison on drug charges at 13 times the rate of white men. 2 out of 5 blacks sent to prison are convicted of drug offenses compared to 1 in 4 whites. Black men are incarcerated at 9.6 times 6 times the rate of white men. In 11 states, they are incarcerated at rates that are 12 to 26 times greater than that of white men. Nationwide, and every 20 black men over the age of 18 is in prison. In 5 states, between 1 in 13 and 1 in 14 black men is in prison. So yeah, we get the picture. I mean, the war was really on blacks. Um, Niagara says that's true. I don't think it'll be a problem if it was tax. Okay, anything that has taxes is legal. True. Taxes is for the government. That's how they get paid. We pay their salary. True. Candy says our taxes paid for the prisoners in jail. Absolutely true. I keep telling people that. I'd be like, y'all so quick to want people to go to prison and jail, but at the end of the day, your tax-paying dollars is paying for these criminals to be locked up. And your taxes is always also paying for frivolous cases like wrongful imprisonment and malicious prosecution. Your taxes is paying for all that. So I really feel like we should all come together, like-minded individuals, and be like, hey, this is not right. We should start taxing cocaine and drugs. I don't know if they'll do it, but hey, if we get a lot of people petitioning this, it can be done. Um, I want to go all the way down to what Trump has to say about people who sell drugs. Trump thinks, where's Trump? Okay, Trump era. DPA pushes forward despite challenges. The Trump administration threatened to take us backwards towards a 1980s style drug war. President Trump started building a wall to keep drugs out of the country and called for harsher sentencing for drug law violations and the death penalty for people who sell drugs. He also resurrected disproven just say no messages aimed at the youth. So Trump thinks that there should be a death penalty for people who sell drugs. Do y'all agree? Do y'all feel like there should be a death penalty for people who sell drugs? To me, honestly, I think it's kind of harsh. I think it's a harsh punishment. I think it's meant to destroy the blacks because they know the war wasn't really against drugs. The war was really against black people. Kenny says sure did, and then fell off the stage while speaking. Who fell off the stage while speaking? Adrian says, well, I say no because the crown will be way out of him. We have to have some control. Somebody fell off the stage while speaking? I missed that one. Yeah, I agree. That's a harsh punishment, you know, to it's like the government just wants to just destroy blacks. Just destroy us all. That's what it seems like to me, especially with Black Wall Street. I keep going back to Black Wall Street. That was just terrible. They didn't have to loot and bomb up the entire city while all the blacks were together and at one piece. And they had homes, they had children, they had family to feed, and they didn't even have a home to go to. I heard it was how many people was homeless after that? It said 9,000 people became homeless during the massacre of Tulsa Tribune, the Black Wall Street, 9,000 people became homeless. That is just sad. And not any of them people got reparations. None of them. So it's just like there's this Pharaoh guy, which is the government. The government to me is Pharaoh. And Pharaoh just wants to continue to kill and destroy blacks, especially black men. Like in the Bible, Pharaoh said, "Let's just kill them at birth. Let's kill them. Let's throw all the newborn babies, the men, into the Nile River." And we all know they didn't necessarily just throw the black boys into the river. They used them as alligator bait. That's a whole nother topic for another episode. So Idris says, okay, but the blacks also need to help each other so the whites know we strong together. True. Candy says it's a tax write-off. What's a tax write-off? Are you saying drugs is a tax write-off? Idris says, but we as black people, we too busy trying to outdo each other. True. Outshine. Not realizing that we have a common enemy in America. We have a common enemy, and that enemy is Pharaoh, aka the government. That's our enemy. And I'm just gonna throw it out there. I have no shame in saying that. That's our enemy. The enemy is not us. Oh well, she started her business before me, or I'm not gonna help her, or whatever. No, we shouldn't be going at each other. We should stick together. I know it sounds cliche, but it's the truth. I mean, the Hispanic population, dude, they stick together. They have their own family businesses. They got their family working with them. You don't hear much about them falling out and they're trying to outdo each other. It's mainly blacks who do that. And the more black people are going against each other, the more we become a minority. The other groups and races of people, they pass us up. DT won't give DT. Oh, Donald Trump won't give the death penalty for YT meth dealers. Nancy Reagan. Oh, so you saying Nancy Reagan was the one who fell off the stage? That's a good point, though. Wonder why. Yeah. Yeah, so we know who the war is really against. Okay, it's 5:41. We went way past schedule because it's only supposed to be a 30-minute show. But thank y'all for tuning in. God bless y'all. Hopefully y'all stay in tune with me next Wednesday. Y'all keep coming in. And if y'all want me to talk about a particular topic, you know how to reach me on Instagram or YouTube. But like, hey, I think we should talk about this. Let me know. I'm very humble. So give me your ideas or whatever, and then I'll do some research and I'll come up with a whole little not PowerPoint, but a whole page or sheet that I just type in worried about. 1921 for Tulsa. And yeah, 1921 is when Black Wall Street was created, and then it also was the same year it was destroyed. Just determined. Pharaoh's just determined to curse. It's just determined. But love conquers all. And when we stick together, we are strong together. We are strong together. All right, y'all. That's it. You guys have a wonderful rest of the week. And I hope y'all enjoy the Super Bowl. I won't be able to. But all right. Thank y'all. Have a blessed day. Prisoners in jail. Okay. All right, y'all. Bye.